Heaven Blues Channel presents a new Dr. Rifat Ismail adventure, Paranormal, Book 9, Part 1, Legend of the Pharaoh's Curse, by Dr. Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq. Introduction. I am Dr. Rifat Ismail, ex-professor of hematology in Egyptian universities and a number of colleges abroad. I am the aging bachelor who has nearly finished my life's thread, and what's left can be counted in hours, days, or years before I catch up with eternity. And therefore I have decided to take up my pen and write my memories so that they will not end with me. What have I learned from all I've been through? I've learned that I've learned nothing. And if I could be a 20-year-old again, I would have done the same things, made the same mistakes, voiced the same trivialities. History repeats itself for one reason, which is that every time we expect it won't repeat itself and that events will take a new direction. I hear you asking, is this old guy going to waste our time with his shallow philosophy? Won't he tell us a new story? Yes, friends, I will tell you a story, but the previous lines are especially important in what I will tell you in the coming minutes, and you will soon understand. When did this story take place? It happened in early 1967. You've all heard and read about the Pharaoh curse, but none of you knows what I have known, and did not face a nightmare like, no, I won't give spoilers. I have warned you. Don't open the coffin. Come through the next pages, but with your free will. I didn't coerce you or ask you to accompany me, so there's no use in screaming. No use at all. Part 1. The Doctor. For them to have requested you in a consultancy means a paycheck with a decent number, one bearing a name such as consultancy fee or appearance fee, or some such thing. But this time, instead of receiving a check, you received the verdict of your death, a decision that cannot be repealed. 1. Special Consultancy. January 1967. Age 43. The age of adulthood and the digestion of life's experiences while you're still able to go through it. I had just returned from my nightmarish adventure of the Cave Guard, that adventure in which I came very close to death more than once, more than any other adventure so far. I had spent myriad nights tossing and turning in my bed from the image of a fist of moving sand, and I would awaken drenched in a cold sweat to check the phosphoric numbers lighting my alarm clock in the darkness of the room. And I would sigh. And a few minutes later I would see the assas standing by the door with his wavering, horrible features in the dim light from the living room. And at this point I decided to scream, but I stopped myself from doing this stupid thing at the last second, because I know all of this is an illusion. An illusion. The time has come for you to get married, Rifat. That's what my neighbors tell me frankly, and my friends advise me, and my late mother orders me. And of course, all of them see my weary face and the graying temples in the remnants of my hair, and the look of horror that has become my baseline. People get married to find someone to take care of them, or they get married to have kids, or they get married because they have nothing better to do. As for me, I will be the first to get married as an escape from seeing ghosts, monsters, and vampires. But did someone tell you I'm like other people? And in the mirror I look at this horrible thing I have turned into and ask, what woman would accept this? They all, neighbors, friends, family, tell me there are thousands of potential brides. Yes, 1,000 bridezillas. And they respond by sighing with annoyance, saying, everybody marries someday, and for every time there is a season. And of course there will be compromise. So I protest in horror. And why would the parties compromise? What forces them to do so? Their response comes, unfortunately, you're still just a kid who won't compromise, a kid who wants everything without anything in return. That's true, and since I'm like that, why would I get married? Because everybody does it someday. Of course, the miserable bride was Hoeda. Do you remember her? The girl I met at Idles and Alex when I was in the depths of my problem with the human cannibal. I didn't pay her much attention at first, and I started with a sort of prudish, cold emotion towards her, and we exchanged a few letters from the U.S., from Greece, from Libya, etc. And when I returned, she was still waiting. And at a semi-happy family party at Idle's house, replete with the traditional cheers made by Idle's wife, Shiham, that sounded rather like a wolf howling, she encircled my finger with a ring, and I did likewise. And we became two prisoners in a futuristic shared cell. It was an engagement party like any other. The same boring strolls in the street, the same love words I pour on her by the sea, the same red plastic cups in the same casinos, my pretending to be in love and her pretending to be shy and timid. I think we are born with a limited amount of romance and ability to love, and I have used all my quantity with Maggie, and all my trials have just become habits, like the rocket that still moves with inertia after the shutdown of all engines. Except that, and God knows, I had honest intentions of making her happy, and my wife, and I never once made her aware of the endless questions in my head. I was, as you know, living in Cairo. Therefore, I became used to traveling to Alex on Thursdays to visit my fiancée at her family's house in Al Anfushi, and I might pass by Adil's house with or without her, according to my mood, to chat with him or complain about her, if I was, obviously, alone. And you may ask here, why didn't you just get married right away? In those happy days, marriages would be delayed not because of lack of finances or a paucity of available apartments, but rather for the luxurious reason of the engaged couple getting to know each other better. Can you imagine? Days were passing by and the wedding day was nearing, and the sun's cycle was continuing when I received the official summons. I went to open my apartment door in Dutty, as usual, expecting that whoever was ringing the doorbell was someone blaming me for something, or conveying a disaster, or asking how to borrow some money which he would never return. It was January 8th, 1967, and I was making a dodgy breakfast meal when I heard the blasted doorbell. I opened the door to find a stocky, dark-featured cop with the obligatory huge mustache staring at me doubtfully, a paper in his hand. I asked him tensely, "What is it?" He responded, "They want you." He said it in a cold tone, as if he saw my question as silly. I took the paper and opened it with shaky hands, feeling like a woman receiving her divorce papers. And in it I found an official summons from the Antiquities Authority asking for my scientific opinion. But why? "But I'm a doctor, so what's my relation to—" "The police car is waiting for you downstairs, doctor." And so I found no alternative but to turn off the stove, get dressed, and catch up with the reticent visitor in the bleak-looking cop car parked in front of my building. And a look of smugness filled the eyes of the doorman and some neighbors when they saw me walking next to the cop, as if they were sure this would eventually happen as a punishment for my crimes and my ill manners and my questionable lifestyle. This lunatic cop had scandalized me to the whole neighborhood. The car drove through the streets of Cairo en route to the ministry, and I entered a vast ballroom with a large attached office with a huge desk, on top of which stood various small pharaoh statues. And there was a group of gentlemen with prestigious and dangerous looks and high-ranking officers who stared at me with doubt for no apparent reason, and the scientists with their thick glasses and silent mannerisms. "Dr. Rifat Ismail," said an elegantly dressed man with graying temples, his glasses on top of his head. He shook my hand in a friendly way and added, "I'm Dr. Ramzi Habib, Egyptology expert. Of course, you're still confused at us calling you here in such a way." I shook my head humbly, saying, "I'm a sensitive person, Dr. Ramzi, very sensitive, and cops coming in the early morning is not a light subject for sensitive people." He exploded in laughter, more than what my joke called for, and with him laughed the gentlemen surrounding us, in a clear compliment for my sake. I started getting worried. There was an atmosphere of tension covering this place, the tenseness that manifests itself in any random way, a scream, a nervous movement of the leg, inappropriate laughter. I'm not an idiot. "Actually, Dr. Rifat, we are," said Dr. Ramzi. "Please, why don't you sit? Now, can we get you anything?" "Cigarettes." One of the gentlemen reached into his pocket with a fake laugh and retrieved a metal tobacco pack and handed me a cigarette from it. And before I knew what was happening, the flames of 6 lighters held in 6 eager hands were aimed at my cigarette. Actually, we have heard a lot about, let's say, your successful tours in the paranormal world, and the case we are facing needs an expert in such things. We are moving in the dark. Do you understand?" "No." I said it like a cork from a wine bottle directed at his throat. He smiled, embarrassed, and added, "I'll be more clear. You're a professor of hematology. That's one point. And an expert in the secrets of the metaphysical. And that's another point. Which means you are exactly the man we need." I tapped my cigarette, and someone hurried over with an ashtray to put it within my reach. This is good treatment that stirs my worries. Me, who always expects the worst. These gentlemen have some kind of disaster for me. And if we added what this comrade is saying about metaphysics, then figuring out what's happening here would not be so hard. I am going into another catastrophe of the catastrophes that await me everywhere and every time. Contemplating his fingernails, Dr. Ramsay said, "There's a certain thing, kind of a monument. We want you to see it and give your full opinion, and a detailed scientific report explaining some of the mysterious phenomena surrounding this discovery." "And this thing, this monument, is it a mummy?" I asked. Dr. Ramsay lifted his gray eyes to me in a reverential way and shook his head, yes. "And there were other scientists who investigated it before me?" "Actually," I cut him off, saying, "Please answer, no holds barred." He sighed in surrender and said with a throaty voice, 5 scientists." "And all of them died in unfathomable, mysterious circumstances?" "All of them." He exchanged a confused look with the men standing and then asked me, "How did you know?" "That's how the story always goes." And I put out my cigarette and continued, "And that's why you brought me in?" "Exactly." "To be the 6th victim?" He shook his head in confusion and rubbed his hands, mumbling, "But to tell us the truth about what's happening." And he aimed at one of the men standing, a dark, skinny guy with thick black eyeglasses, and said, "Mr. Mohammed Ragab will give you a better background on the subject." The man shook my hand with a cold hand, dried the sweat building up on his forehead, and said, "Nice to meet you, Dr. Rifat." He then sat on a comfortable chair in front of me and withdrew a small notebook from his pocket, as it appeared that some points within it would help him gather his thoughts. "The matter concerns a pharaoh king from the 6th dynasty, a king we know very little to nothing about, and a coincidence alone is what led us to his grave." And he wet his lips with his tongue and continued, "I don't know if you have any idea about the subject, Dr. Rifat, but there is a top secret order that I tell you here stays a secret." "And why so?" He replied, "Even that is a secret as well. All I ask of you is to promise me." I told him, "I promise, as long as it's for the good of the country." And therefore, my dear reader, please excuse me from mentioning details, for I haven't seen any of these gentlemen since that year, and none of them has exempted me from my oath. I will tell you my story, keeping to myself the bigger chunk of details, and even the name of the pharaoh himself I will not mention. Instead, we will give him a symbolic name like Khirum I, which is, by the way, very close to his real name. "This gravesite was very different than any other we have found before," said Mr. Mohammed nervously, and then continued, "and what we have found in it is expected to change much of our previous understanding about pharaonic history. Even the method of mummification itself did not look familiar to us." Tensely, my interest piqued, I said, "And did thieves enter this gravesite?" He exchanged a questioning look with Dr. Ramsay, which said, "Should I be frank?" Then he sighed and answered my question. "Very few, and all of them touched nothing." "And the reason is?" He swallowed hard, closed his notebook, and said, "The owner of this grave was abnormal. In all fairness, we don't claim any superpowers for him, but the undeniable truth, the truth that's hard to comprehend, is that the grave robbers escaped the site as soon as they entered it. Their footprints in the dust, untouched for centuries, confirms this to us." And then he looked at me firmly, saying, "What did these thieves see? One sneaking into a grave at night to rob it will surely not be scared of a mouse or a snake." Dr. Ramsay interrupted him, saying, "Tell him about the body." "Ah," said Mr. Mohammed, I was saying about thieves, as if Ramsay hadn't spoken. Curious, I asked him, "What body?" He tried to avoid answering by returning to talk of the graveside itself, but I insisted on understanding, which obliged him to dry his sweat and say, while giving a scolding look to Dr. Ramsay, "It's one of the thieves' body, the body of a human who tripped while trying to escape with his buddies." And strangely, on his face were terrible signs of horror. And stranger still is the fact that he did not decay despite tens of centuries since his death. And the most amazing part, and silence filled the room for a moment until he continued, is that we couldn't find one drop of clotted blood in his veins. End of part 1. To be continued. Please like and subscribe to Heaven Blues channel for more upcoming audiobooks.